We're going to take a look at Module 62, and we'll do the check your understandings first here. There's actually three of them in this section. So number one says, what policy should the government adopt in the following cases? Explain. And it says, internet service is provided by cable in this town, and customers say they're being overcharged, but the cable company claims it has to charge prices to recover the cost of the cable. So the government should regulate with a price ceiling if, right, and this is the key part, if the price is greater than the ATC, because if it's a cable company that's a natural monopoly, right, the government should be intervening in a natural monopoly if the price is bigger than ATC. However, they should leave it alone if this isn't true. If price equals the ATC or price is less than the ATC, then the firm is right that it is charging prices that are trying to recover the cost of the cable. So this is the only condition where that would be true. So that's A. B says the only two airlines that fly to Alaska want to merge, and other airlines want to fly to Alaska but need allocated landing slots to do so. And this is true that airlines do need landing slots in airports. And we would say allow the merger only if new firm, the new merged firm, right, the new monopolist, gives up slots to other firms, right? So we would say you can't do that unless you give up some of the slots to the other firms, and that would promote competition. So number two is true, false, and explain your answer. Society's welfare is lower under monopoly because some consumer surplus is transformed into profit for a monopolist. Now this one's tricky. Society's welfare is lower under a monopoly, right? The total surplus is lower. However, the reason is not because some of the surplus is transformed into profit. So this is an interesting problem, right? You have two statements that total surplus is lower, and so this is true, right? This is a true statement. And it is true that some consumer surplus is transformed into profit. Also a true statement. Right? Both of those are true. But this is not because some of the consumer surplus is transformed into profit. This is because the monopolist, so we would say false, and it's because the total surplus is lower because there is lower quantity in a monopoly. It's not because of that. Not that. And that's just a different aspect of this. In fact, when the consumer surplus is transformed into producer surplus, that's not inefficiency. We might not like that, but that's not why the total surplus is lower. So, part B. Monopolist causes inefficiency. Okay, they do. Because there are consumers who are willing to pay a price greater than or equal to MC, but less than the price. And that actually is true. True. And that's the idea, is that if price equaled MC, that is to say demand equaled the supply, then it'd be efficient. So this type of efficient is allocatively efficient. And that's the other type of efficiency that we're looking at in this class, is allocative efficiency. So if demand and supply equal each other, and that's the quantity that the firm is generating, then it'd be allocatively efficient. But it's typically not. It's not typically that. And we can see that in the graph. All right, number 3. Suppose a monopolist mistakenly believes that his or her marginal revenue is always equal to market price. It's not, assuming constant marginal cost and no fixed cost. Draw a diagram comparing the level of profit, consumer surplus, total surplus, deadweight loss for this misguided monopolist compared to a smart monopolist. Oh, what an interesting one. Okay. So for this one, boy, what an interesting problem. We need price and quantity. And it does tell us constant marginal cost with no fixed cost. So we can draw a picture where MC here is equal to the ATC. That's what it's telling us when it says MC is constant and there's no fixed. And then we're going to have a downward sloping demand curve and an MR that looks like that. Now the firm that the smart one is going to produce is here, is this quantity, right? So I'm just going to say quantity smart, and then it says what's the quantity that the dumb monopolist one produces. They're going to produce where the demand curve equals marginal cost. So that's quantity dumb, right? And the quantity dumb, or maybe we should say misguided. Yeah, quantity misguided. So smart, and that's a little hard to read up there, sorry, misguided. And then the profit, right, for the smart one is just here. And then let's see here, for this one, that's the interesting part. The level of profit for the misguided one, is profit equals 0, because they're pricing at the ATC. So if they set the price at the ATC, so that's the price for the smart one, and that's the price for the misguided one. If they set the price equal to the ATC for the misguided one, then they earn 0 profit. But that's the profit here for the smart one. Then it says the total surplus. Okay, so the total surplus is actually this area and this area, and the profit for the misguided one. So the 3 triangles for the misguided, or the 3 boxes, the triangle box for the misguided one. It'd be nice if they gave us values actually for this, and then we could calculate them, because that would be the total surplus. It's the area above the supply curve, right? Since this is the supply curve, up to the price that the people are willing to pay, up to the demand curve. So all of this total surplus is actually consumer surplus, for the misguided one. The deadweight loss is this one, if you're talking about the smart one. So the smart one would end up generating some deadweight loss, but they don't care about it because then they get this as profit, and only that is left for the consumers. Okay, so at this point, we can take a look at the multiple choice. Multiple choice number 1 here. Which of the following is true of a monopoly as compared to a perfectly competitive market with the same costs? So a monopoly is going to have smaller consumer surplus. Profit would not be smaller, right? That would not be true. And deadweight loss would not be smaller, it would be larger. So the correct answer is A, only. Okay. Number 2, which of the following is true of a natural monopoly? It experiences diseconomies of scale. No, that's not true. ATC is lower if there's a single firm in the market. Yes, that is true. So we'll check the others, but I think the answer is going to be B. It occurs in a market that relies on natural resources. Not necessarily. There are decreasing returns to scale. No, that's the same statement as diseconomies. So they actually have increasing returns. And the government has to provide the good or service to achieve efficiency. No, that's not true. We know that we can regulate natural monopolies. So the right answer is B. Number 3. Which of the following government actions is the most common for a natural monopoly? It's going to be regulating. So that is C. Number 4. What the following markets is an example of a regulated natural monopoly? So a natural monopoly would be local cable TV. And many times they are regulated. But you know, this one I really don't like that question, because in most markets, cable television actually isn't regulated anymore, but it's the best one that's on here. Organic tomatoes are not a natural monopoly. Diamonds are not really a natural monopoly. Cell phone service isn't. Gasoline's not. It'd be better if they said local water service. So on a test, I think I'd probably change that. You know, local water service or electrical service is probably going to be a regulated natural monopoly. So number 5. What is the most likely to be higher for a regulated natural monopoly than for an unregulated natural monopoly? We have product variety. No, it's the same product. Quantity, yes, it would be an increased quantity because they would regulate them and force them to produce more at a lower price. So this is going to be a lower price, so C is not right. Profit, it would be lower for, and deadweight loss would actually be smaller in a regulated monopoly as well. So the answer for this one, 5, higher quantity, B. Okay. And FRQ number 2. Draw a correctly labeled graph of a natural monopoly. Use your graph to identify the following: consumer surplus, if it were perfectly competitive, consumer surplus with the monopoly, monopoly profit, and deadweight loss. Okay, so we're going to use just some letters to do this because it's a lot easier. We're going to say here's our MC, and that's the firm's supply curve. Here's our demand curve and marginal revenue. And we know the demand curve is the price. And we'll say, it doesn't tell if it's earning, well, it says identify the profit. So we know that the quantity the firm produces is here, and the price is up here that the firm charges, okay? And we're going to go ahead and say that it's got this ATC that does one of those, okay? So from here to here. So I'm just going to label some points. A, B, C, we'll say P, F, and then over. That's D, and we're going to say E and F, and we need something over here as well. We'll say that's point G. And so again, I'm just kind of labeling some points because I know which ones we're going to need. So A is consumer surplus if perfect competition. So in perfect competition, this supply curve and this demand curve would be the quantity, right? And then everything above the price, all the way up to the demand curve, would be the consumer surplus. So for us, that would be, let's see here, it would be G all the way over to F, because that's the price, if we had this quantity of production. In perfect competition, it would be supply and demand equal each other, and that's the price. So it would be F to G all the way up to A. And again, your letters could differ as if you had different points on here. Part B, consumer surplus with the monopoly. Well, if the monopoly is true, then it's at QF, and the price at QF is PF right here. So the consumer surplus is PF to B, and then up along the demand curve to A. So consumer surplus if monopoly would be PF to B to A. That smaller triangle. C, monopoly profit, that one's fairly easy. PF to B to C to D, because we're going from the price, which is at PF, down to the ATC. So profit is equal to PF B C D. And D is deadweight loss with the monopoly, and that would be because we aren't at the perfectly competitive quantity over here at G, this area is our deadweight loss. And it goes all the way up that demand curve, right? So we would say it's BEG. BEG. Because those are the transactions that are not happening. Okay, so hopefully that helps you understand a little bit from Module 62, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.